let's jump in to show you our DBT integration. So what I'm looking at here is an empty repository inside of AtScale, and I'm going to import a DBT repository into this AtScale repository, and it's going to create all the AtScale objects in here. I do want to note that for the demo today, I'm using DBT's Jaffle SL template repository, which DBT describes as a production example of a DBT project containing metrics and semantic models. So that's what we're going to import. So what I do is I come straight down to this Convert tab, and I can see that my repository source is DBT. I'm going to point to that repository. This is a URL to it. And then choose what connection I want to use for this import. So when I hit convert, what it's doing is it's grabbing all those semantic layer objects and other objects outside of or in the DBT repository. It's going to convert those into an AtScale SML representation of them, and then it's going to add them into our repository. So if I go back to our repo browser, I can now see I have a new AtScale folder here, and here are our SML objects. If I go into models, I can visualize this model, this Jaffle Shop model, here on our canvas, and now you can see all of these objects in AtScale. Now what we've actually imported here are fact data sets here that are defined as models within DBT. So the models are, well, anyone who's familiar with DBT knows about their models, but it's basically they create a bunch of SQL logic and other things to be able to generate these data sets. So we bring those into AtScale. We define the relationships between those and dimensions, and those relationships are defined within the semantic model within DBT, and those are all orange lines here. And then these are all of our dimensions that were brought in from DBT. So one specific dimension that didn't come from DBT is the date dimension. And that is something that we are generating on the fly for the given query engine. So it's a little different for Snowflake versus BigQuery versus Databricks. Within this date dimension, you can see I have a couple of hierarchies in here. I have a year, quarter, month, day levels. All of these are available within the semantic model that users can query, and they can query consistently across different kinds of imports or different kinds of models that they've created. So they could also swap out this date dimension for a different date dimension. So if an organization has their own standard date dimension, they would just easily swap it here, and then they would have that consistent interface into their data. If we look over here, what we can see, well, actually, before we deploy this, let me show you a little bit of a preview of what it looks like. So here are our dimensions. We put them inside of folders to keep them a little bit organized, and same with the metrics. I have some calculations in here. I can see cumulative revenue. Now, if I go back to my actual objects, I can see the details of that cumulative revenue. So this is the BI interface, and this right here is the full objects, the SML objects. So here's that cumulative revenue again. And I wanted to show you that it generated an expression within this for this calculation that is utilizing that date dimension, and it's also calling the revenue metric, existing measure. And so that is defining this full cumulative revenue. And this is what's going to get embedded inside of the query once we're querying with AtScale. So if I go back to my model here, the one other thing I wanted to mention is with these fact data sets, they do have date columns or date time columns within them. So this is an ordered at column. I see over here there's an opened at. These represent different points in time. Each of those has a relationship to that date dimension with a prefix added to it that represents those individual dates. So there's an ordered at year, a opened at year. There's different date dimension objects that are created out of the semantic model. So now I want to deploy this so it can actually be made available to my coworkers. So first I want to push my changes into Git. I can see it added 55 SML objects. And I will just add in here, added DBT semantic objects. And I will do a local commit here. And then I can sync that up, which pushes my changes to the server so they're available. And now I'm going to deploy it. So in the deployment process, it's going to now make those objects fully available to users so they can query via Tableau, Power BI, Excel, whatever BI tools they want to use.